All right, guys, I'm a mess. This is. No, it doesn't matter how much I prepare for this. There's so much more I want to do, and that's the biggest mistake that teachers make, and I make it too, is I prepare and I get too excited about too much stuff, and I can't cover all this. I mean, I need another screen. That's what I need. I need a big screen right there, and then I can see a third thing instead of just these two. I know you guys are very interested in this. It's just so interesting. Way more interesting than theology, learning about how I prepare. Anyway, yeah, we're getting ready to get started here. I think I'm close to ready, but I'm not as ready enough. That's it. I'm just not ready enough. And I want to do more. And all night long I prepare for this and get it all. I have it all set up so I can get up, get my coffee, do my stuff, and come in here and do this. And I'm not ready. Okay, so that's it. No. Wait a minute. Wait. I teach my teacher's training class. Do not apologize for anything ahead of time, because that's a no-go. Okay, so I take back my apology if there was any apology implied. I am perfectly ready. Okay, let's see here. I got a start button. Let me make this larger. That's my OBS, just in case you want to know. OBS. And I don't know what that stands for. Not Open Bible System, but it's my program I use to change screens and stuff like that. There you go. So interesting. Let's get started. I got to wait a minute after I start, because each time I forget, and this recording takes a minute to start. Good to see you guys. Thank you for showing up. I really do appreciate it. What are we on? 13, okay. Welcome to Through Theology in a Year. This is Michael Patton, and it is Theology Unplugged once again. Yes, listen, I am going to start doing our regular Theology Unplugs. Like I almost did one last night. But of course, this is coming out every day, and this is my commitment. It's my commitment to you guys. It's my commitment to the subject. It's commitment to myself so that I can force myself to go through all of systematic theology again. So that's what we're doing here today, going through systematic theology, talking about systematic theology. And you may have thought we were done yesterday talking about categories of theology, but no. We are not done. We got a lot to talk about. Okay, listen, don't forget, you guys who are on the podcasts, you're listening to this later in the night or tomorrow or a year from now. At least right now we're doing this live every morning at around 9, okay, around 9. One of these days I'll have it down and it's going to push the button at 9 and we're just starting. 9 a.m. Central Time. But come watch us live. Go to YouTube. You can see everything. If you miss out on something, I'm talking about something that you know I'm looking at, it's because I'm looking at a screen, and other people are looking at a screen as well. So you can have that as well if you go over to YouTube. Make sure you subscribe there. But I'm trying to be descriptive enough to where you can just get this on your way to work while you're driving. So let's get started. We're talking about systematic theology. We're talking about categories of theology and where systematic theology fits into the big hole. Real quick, let me plug this book. This book, I should have plugged it 4 or 5 times ago when we were talking about folk theology and tabloid theology. Although this is where I got the idea of folk theology from. Stanley Grentz and Roger Olson, Who Needs Theology? An Invitation to the Study of God. That's why I've called this class often Prolegomena, is an invitation to theology. I'm inviting you. That's what it's all about. I'm trying to convince you not only to do theology, not only to do theology well, but also to love it and get excited about it. I hope you're getting excited about it. I hope I'm doing justice. I'm not trying, if you guys have been through the theology program, which I've talked about a lot on here, the entire program all together in 60 sessions, formal, that is for a classroom. You can do it in your church, by the way. You can take all this. You can go to creedalcourses.com, get the entire systematic theology on a thumb drive, and go through it formally with workbooks and PowerPoints and everything else. Not this PowerPoint. You're going to have to wait a while before this PowerPoint is updated. But this is something that you can do on your own at any time, 60 sessions. But the first one, Introduction to Theology, is an invitation to theology. This is an invitation to the study of God. And I hope that I'm doing it justice. I came up, by the way, they don't have tabloid theology. I really think they should. I think they need to update this book and put a little reference here for the theology program, tabloid theology, or through theology in a year if you want to. I'll take that. But that is what we did last time. Let's see here. Let me make sure really quick. I am not having a problem coming through, because I'm getting a weird phone call, and every time I get a weird phone call, it usually means, hey, Michael, I can't hear you. Hey, Michael, something's the matter. So if anybody can just make a comment wherever you're at and just say, hey, everything's fine, can hear you, that kind of stuff, that would be great. This is for my live audience. So anybody, please, not while you're driving, but take the time, if you're not driving, to write a message. I think I can see your message. So I got to remember to cut this out so that this doesn't need to be in the original. Anybody, come on. We got a lot of people in here, I can see. Just anybody say, hey, everything's good. I can hear you. I'm just going to assume that you can and move on. I hate getting those kind of phone calls, but I have to set this aside. Usually it's my sister who calls me and says, Michael, start all over. Something's the matter. Okay, well, since you guys aren't in much of a talkative mood, there'll be a little pause right here, and I'll jump right back into it. So this is an invitation to the study of God. This is the broad overview. You remember whenever we were talking about the hospital last time, we talked about systematic theology like a hospital, and every department in the hospital, from your neurologist to your psychiatrist to your heart doctor, cardiologist, all of those people specialize in something. But the hospital, you've got a guy there, and he's named the chief of medicine. I think that's what it's called. Could be chief of surgery. I don't know. But the chief of medicine, just imagine if I'm wrong. And Eric, I'm sorry, because Eric, you've been giving me so much information. My doctor, who is a Patreon, and we've been going back and forth about this. But if I'm messing this up, I'm sorry. But the chief of medicine, he's the guy who has to know everything, and that's what I'm trying to convince you guys of. You may specialize in something. You may love apologetics and defending the faith. You may love just studying the Bible, or you may just love the Johannine writings, which means John's writings in the Bible. Fancy word for that, right? Johannine. But, and I do. I love John. I have a tender spot in my heart for John because, I mean, if I could find my old Bible that I grew up with, you would see John chapter 14, and it would be messed up. That's the only part of my Bible that'd be messed up. I didn't know anything but John chapter 14, and I loved the tender picture that he presented Christ with, and I loved the way that John wrote. And so ever since then, even to today, I have a special place for John. And I like to study John, and I like to focus on John and try to understand how did John view, what was his world view? What was his entire theology? Can we get the bits and pieces? And once we have those bits and pieces, I'm in the hospital now, and I'm just the neurologist getting all these bits and pieces, understanding one aspect of the bigger whole. Then I can plug that into the bigger whole later on. And what I'm saying is you have to have it all. You have to have it all, and that's what we're going to talk about more today. And here is our PowerPoint. This is our umbrella that we ended with last time. Notice here you've got systematic theology up top of the umbrella, and under the umbrella, all of these categories existing. Your biblical theology, your historical theology, your philosophical theology, creedal and dogmatic, and apologetic. All of those exist underneath the bigger whole. Now, let's talk about just different categories real quick of systematic theology. I don't want to spend too much time on this, even though I love this. You need to get to know these words as we go through this entire year. I will use them here and there, but I will define them each time I talk about them. That's one thing I will do. Yeah, I promise you hang with me, and each time I'm going to define everything that we go through. I'm not saying everything is perfectly easy, and that I'm making it super easy. We're going to have to learn some stuff, folks. We really are. You're going to have to learn some terminology. Don't worry about it. You can do it. I promise you can do it. You don't understand how incredible you are. You don't understand how smart your brain is. No matter how dumb you think you are in comparison to other people, and we like to make fun of ourselves and be hard on ourselves, but in the end, don't get too hard on yourself. You're creating the image of God, and God wants you to understand this stuff. He wants you to know this stuff. And our brain works in terminologies. Try to think of something without having terms for it. You can't. We have to have a language that's continually going through our brain. And the more precise this language gets, the better off we are in understanding it. So we go through and we look at the different terms that we're going to go through in systematic theology. And so take systematic theology as a whole. And now we're going to take individual subjects and show how we can grab from each department, each in the hospital, the historic, the biblical, the philosophical, the apologetic, the creedal and dogmatic, can grab all of those and understand this subject better. So we start here with, of course, prolegomena. That is a word I've used a whole lot. It's the prologue to theology. It's what we have to learn before we learn the rest. Literally means things spoken of beforehand. The prologue. You know, the prologue to a book. It's the thing you don't read usually. In theology, you better read the prologue, and that's what we're going through here, is the prologue. So that is prolegomena, and then you have bibliology. Bibliology is not hard. That's an easy one to learn. That is such an easy term. Okay, Bible, Biblia, book. That's bibliology. It's the study of the Bible. That's the study of the nature, transmission, and history of the Bible, the inspiration of the Bible, what our views on the Bible are. And this is where we say, hey, wait a minute. Let's take each one of these individually. How does the Bible itself contribute to our bibliology? Well, it has a lot to say. You know, it talks about the Bible within the Bible. It talks about God's Word. It talks about the books of the Bible. Psalm 119 elevates God's Word and talking about how it's pure gold. It's the greatest thing to know. And then you have Jesus referring back to the Bible during his time and saying the Old Testament, calling them the law and the prophets. So they had a Bible. It was seen as authoritative. It was seen as God's Word. And so we study the Bible and we learn from the Bible, but we also learn from history. We say, well, how did the church for the last 2,000 years understand bibliology? What did the first people right after the apostles think about the Bible? What Bible did they have? What books did they have? What books immediately, this is a great one to think of in history, which books were passed around first? I remember whenever I was doing textual criticism, I did it with Dan Wallace for a while. I love textual criticism. That's basically the science and art of reconstructing the original text of the Bible based upon available manuscript evidence. And I love that. I remember one time I asked Dan, I said, Dan, what was, out of all the manuscripts we find, going back to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, fifth centuries. Of all the manuscripts of the individual books of the Bible, because they didn't have books like we have them until the 4th, 5th century. That's called a codex. But at first it was just manuscripts. It was just scrolls. And they would pass around these scrolls with one book on it, or maybe 2 books on it. And so I said, whenever we look back in history, whenever you do your Indiana Jones stuff and you go out and find all of these manuscripts, what manuscripts do you find most of? What book of the Bible do you find the manuscripts of? And I said, I bet it's John. That's what I said to him. I said, I bet it's John. He said, nope, it's Matthew. Matthew is the one that was most distributed right at the beginning, or at least from the historic evidence. John is second. And just think of the implications of that. Think of all you can really gain thinking about that from a historical standpoint. That all the early Christians, that God in his providence was pushing these books out first. Everybody was saying, oh my gosh, buddy, I'm sending this to my family. I've got to send this book to my friend. And the first thing they're sending out is the story of Jesus. We got to get this thing all the way around. You had all the Gospels that went out first. Then you had the book of Acts that would go right after them. That was the next most. Then you start getting all of Paul's epistles. This was called the Pauline corpus. They would bundle them together. Romans was loved. 1 Corinthians was loved. They just went around so fast. A lot of people say, and we'll talk about this later, how in the world did the Bible become the Bible from all these individual letters? Well, let me ask you this. How did the 10 Commandments become the Bible as Moses came down the mountain from it? How did they all decide, hey, we ought to put this in our Bible? They didn't think that way. It just did. It just became, based upon its own inherent authority coming from Moses, it was automatically revered. Maybe they didn't call it the Bible. Maybe they didn't think of it the exact same way we do. But, man, I'll tell you what, they passed this thing around believing that it was from God. So it's just great. I just use that as a quick illustration of how history can come on and contribute to this one subject, bibliology, and how much we can study the individual departments in order to place it in a bigger whole and see what it looks like. This is a tapestry that is incredible we're creating for each one of these subjects. Okay, so next one, what do we got? We have theology proper. Now, this is the focus on the study of God's, just God himself, theology proper. Okay, because we're going to talk about Trinitarianism in a minute, but this is just studying God, just studying God. Sometimes it's called Trinitarianism. That's what I call it. Christology. Oh, that's a tough one. You're never going to get that. I mean, I have to tell you what Christology is because there's no way you know what Christology is, right? Guess what? Oh, you got it. It is the study of Christ. How incredible. But think of it that way. Again, what all does the Bible say about Christ? What does history say about Christ? Incredible stuff we're going to go through. Okay, here's a little bit of harder one. Pneumatology. You might say, Michael, you're so dumb. What are you pronouncing the P for? You did. Back then, you pronounced the P. Whenever you're talking about from the Greek, they would pronounce the P. So pneuma, like if you had a pneumonia. Pneuma, I don't know. It comes from the same word as pneumonia. Wind, breath. The breath that you have, that's pneumonia. But whenever you're talking about pneumatology, we're talking about the study of the Spirit, because spirit and wind are the same thing. Spirit, wind, and breath. In the Hebrew, it's breath. In the Greek, it's wind. It's all the same thing. And so we're talking about the study of the Holy Spirit, focusing on the Spirit. Okay, what's next? We got anthropology. Come on, you've got to know anthropology. You have to. That's not hard. You went to school. You probably studied this. Maybe even in junior high or high school, they use this word, anthropology. It comes from the Greek anthropos. What does anthropos mean? Man. It's the study of man. The study of the purpose and nature of humanity in its pre-fall and post-fall state. And basically what we're doing is we're looking at the big picture. What does the Bible tell us about humanity? Well, it doesn't say that much good sometimes, but it does say something great sometimes. Like, what is man that you should even take thought of him, God? I mean, and then in James talking about, don't you dare ever curse anybody because you don't understand who you're cursing. You're cursing somebody that is in the image of God, the icon of God, and God doesn't like you to curse somebody. He wants us to have a high, reverent view of man. So the Bible tells us high, reverent view, but it's also the same time we are broken and messed up. So we contribute that. Then you go through, look at this. Here's where something else comes in. The department of experience. The department of personal experience. We've got plenty to contribute there. We know ourselves. We know that we ain't that great. We know that there's broken things deep within us. We know there's things that we don't know how to put together. We can't just, through ourselves, focus, emotionally put ourselves back together. We know we're emotionally broken, some of us more so than others. We know that it's hard to make it through this life. But we also know, you know what, we really do like it, and in the best times. So that's our personal emotions, how we feel about it. We know what it's like to experience manhood. And to contribute that, the experience and the memories that we have and the relationships, all of that comes into your theology. It's all a department. And then it goes into the bigger whole. And then you get to philosophy. Whenever you talk about philosophy, we know that man thinks differently than dogs. We know that man thinks differently than ants. We know that we have this thinking about things. Maybe animals have this thinking about things as well. But you know what? They can't think about thinking about things. They don't have this second level of intellect. I mean, a dog can be sad, but he can't know he's sad. You see what I'm saying? He can't think about being sad. Well, we don't know that for sure. But this is what we believe. But we know this for sure, that we can think about being sad. And that's the hardest part about it. Being sad's bad enough. But we experience and we understand how our rational faculty, the philosophy, the department of philosophy comes in and contributes to our theology and says you gotta include this. You got to include this because we are rational, and here's what it means to be rational. We're logical. We try to be logical. But, that's the hardest thing about being man is thinking about things. But it's also the greatest thing, the memories that we have, where we reflect on all of the things that we love and relationships that we have. I know one thing. My mother had an aneurysm that whenever she was 56, she's still alive. I think she's 76 or something. It's been 20 years since that happened. Some of you remember it. Some of you remember what happened to my sister and her depression and taking her own life. And you understand, you have thought about with me, you've been through it, and trying to think about the emotions and the rationale behind it. How could somebody do that? But one of the things my mom is like, and I just saw her the other day, and we say this every time, I'm just so glad she doesn't know she's depressed. You know why? Because she lost the front part of her brain. It was taken out. So therefore, this capacity that philosophy contributes and tells us this is how the brain works. Science, the Department of Science and Theology, and yes, there is a Department of Science and Theology, that comes in and contributes to this anthropology and says our brain is, the front part of our brain, our frontal lobe, controls, even though it can adjust, it controls that if we think about thinking about something. It's the thing that accesses it. And my mom doesn't know she's sad. She's in a bad situation, can't walk, can't talk, anything like that. But she doesn't know it, at least as far as we can tell. Okay, I say that again, kind of like whenever you talk about animals. Why do I say all this? Because everything contributes to our view here. But as we'll move along, what we're going to see is the Bible itself, at least in a Christian worldview, the Bible itself is preeminent. It contributes the most important information, excuse me. Because it's not always the most important. Just stay with me. You'll probably get mad at me for saying that, but I'll explain it later. It's not always the most important, but it is the most authoritative. That's what Christians believe. If the Bible says it, we understand it correctly, we're interpreting it correctly, it trumps all other departments in this hospital. So we're putting it all together. Okay, let's go back here. Hamartiology. That may be a hard one. Hamartia. That is sin. Hamartia. Sin. Say that with me. Hamartia. That means sin in Greek. And hamartia is the study of sin. And boy, do I have a lot to contribute to that department, personally. Angelology, that's an easy one. I'm even embarrassed to tell you guys this. Study of angels, come on. But it could be the study of angels, demons, or you could just say, and I think it's better put this way, the study of other spiritual beings. And we don't know much about it. We really don't. If you went through the theology program 20 years ago, I said, I don't have a class on angelology. I don't know enough about angelology. All I can do is debunk so much folk theology that we have about angelology. And that is, listen, side note, this is a special gift to you. Anytime there's a lack of information, we will fill that so quick, and that we will take advantage of that. If there's this blank that we don't know, a passage in this Bible that we don't know, we will fill that up. For some reason, humanity will take advantage of it and say, well, I know what it is, even though nobody else does, and they'll put some weird essential doctrine. All these lacks, all this ignorance creates this temptation within humanity to fill it, because we don't like voids. We don't like mystery. Naturally, we don't. But I'm going to teach you to love mystery, to think mystery is one of the greatest things that we have here on the planet, and to keep those things blank. Even though I say all this and say this about angelology, I would like to do a class on angelology now. I really would. I think there's enough that I can say that would work. So look forward to that. That may be coming. Okay, next we have, and I'm going to get through these. Soteriology. That's a little bit difficult. Soteria. That's the word. Soteria. That means what? To say or save. The idea of the doctrine of salvation, looking at the big picture. I know I just have one. Look at that, the study of salvation, as if it's that simple. Man, I'll tell you what, our soteriology class, once we get to that and start on that, I don't know how we're going to get through that in 5 years. Just that class alone, because there's so much to say and so much fun. But that we're talking about, what did Christ do on the cross? How does redemption happen? How do we become right with God? How do we get forgiveness? And the controversial stuff about God's election, because the Bible talks about election. What does that election mean? And what are the implications of it? So, soteriology is the study of salvation. Ecclesiology, that's another one that's a little bit hard, but I think you can get it. I think you can get ecclesiology, because I think you've heard of ecclesiastical. Ecclesiastical has to do with the church. Ecclesia means church. Ecclesiology means the study of the church. And that may sound boring, but it's really not, I promise. It's really, really not. I mean, there's so much to try to understand about the church and to learn about what is the church. Is the church a separate entity from Israel? What are the gifts of the church? What are the marks of a true church? What are the marks of a false church? Is there false churches out there? How do we identify? So much. How does the church relate as the bride of Christ, which it's talked about? The church is the beloved bride of Christ. How does that work as an entity, and how do we work within it? What's the invisible, the visible church? So much stuff to go through. Okay, let's go next, and you got eschatology, the very last one. That is the doctrine of the end times. Eschatology. Eschaton. You may have heard that before. In the eschaton, we will finally have all our troubles wiped away, our tears wiped away. That means at the very end. the culmination of all things. That's eschatology, and lots and lots. Most debated in Christianity. Well, I'm going to exaggerate here because it's not really, because I got a couple things that are more debated, but very much debated is the doctrine of the beginning and the doctrine of the end. Why? Because it is a mystery. A lot of it is so much a mystery, and we want to fill that up. We don't like the void. We don't like mystery. Well, again, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you to love mystery and understand it from the bigger context. So eschatology, and I'm not saying we don't know anything about eschatology. I promise. We do. I mean, we got whole books written on what's going to happen at the end. So we'll have to go through that and the different views on eschatology. I did not even come close to getting through what I meant to get through. I thought this part we just went through would have lasted maybe 5 minutes because I had so much more to get through later. That's not even the stuff I worked on all night. So that's how it works. That's why I'm never going to get through this in a year. But don't we? We'll push it to 2 years. No, we're going to get through in a year. We're going to get through in a year. I'll start mapping it out soon. I'm very irresponsible right now with my time because it's so exciting and there's so much to tell you. And I love prolegomena. So I'm so excited to invite you on this journey with me for the next year. Get everybody you can. Let's all go through this together. Let's have discussions about this. Let's become a patron. That's what I want you to do. I want you to become a patron, not just so I can get support, but I do need support. It's how I support myself. But I want you to become a patron. Let's see if I've got that up there. No, I don't. I want you to become a patron. Go to patreon.com, and search for C. Michael Patton, or just put patreon.com/C. Michael Patton. And it's in the description down here. It's probably in the description wherever you're at. Go to my Patreon. Check it out. I'm trying to build a community here, and I'm trying to get us more and more active. I'm trying to start to do kind of after-class discussions, but right now we don't really have quite enough people that... We got a lot of people in the room right now, or at least in the 8 rooms that we got going on that this is agglomerated to, but not enough of these people yet are migrating to the after-class discussion. But once we get up there, it won't be long if I get your help, if we get more people doing this. And let me tell you something, I don't care about doing this because I want to get whatever it's, I don't know, what do you get, likes? I don't know. Subscribers? I don't know. I don't care. I love this job. I love that you've given me this job for 25 years. I love that God has done this. Somehow, through all my, terrible failures, I'm still here and I'm still able to teach this. And this is the greatest thing in the world. It is. And I'm telling you to tell other people, not because I need likes or hearts or whatever. It's because I want everybody to join us on this journey, and I promise to work responsibly. I promise to work ironically, to give you all to look at all the views. And whenever I mess up, and I will mess up, you tell me, okay? I'll adjust, or we'll talk about it. But become a patron, a member of Patreon, and join this community and help support what is going on here. And that's from that community. That's where we're going to build kind of our discussions and such as that. Anyway, I've talked way too long today. Thank you for sticking with me through all this today. And again, whatever you're supposed to do, like, subscribe, do that.